Hey, Rockets fans. I wanted to start this YouTube video off, thanking the man, the beard, for 8 great years that he has given us. You know, those playoff runs, when I tuned into a game, when I got home, I knew James Harden was on. When I tuned in, I knew he was playing. He wasn't on minute restrictions. He wasn't, taking games off the rest. He never did that. You know, even the big names did that. LeBron James, etc. I don't put him in that bracket, but he was always playing and getting his. So I do appreciate James Harden for doing that. But let's get into this trade. Brooklyn, if y'all don't know, Brooklyn gets James Harden. There's 4 teams involved. We make a trade to get Oladipo for Karis LeVert. I don't necessarily like the trade, but for now, I guess because he is becoming an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, so you can trade him at the deadline, and you do have a lot of picks now. This was a team that had no real bright future, especially last year. They had no real bright future. Um, they had little to no draft capital at all. Some of the players on the team, Daniel House was the only young player. I mean, pretty much. Now you have Christian Wood, Daniel House, who's probably an older guy on this team, but you do have a lot of leadership with John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins. Let's see if the Rockets do make a trade at the deadline. I'm sure they will because PJ Tucker's name's already being mentioned in trade talks, which that means I'm glad they kept on to PJ Tucker, not to be on this team, but to get him in a separate trade. That means that you could get a first round draft pick for PJ Tucker for the right team, for the right. It might be a lower first round draft pick, but I mean that's the only way you probably get a first round draft pick. If it's a low first round draft pick, that team could be like Milwaukee. It could be the Clippers. Like I'm just throwing teams out. I really don't know who's in talks with the Rockets, but at the trade deadline, if you want to trade Victor Oladipo, you could trade him to Denver for Michael Porter Jr. and maybe a few first round draft picks. I mean, that's something that is possible. But like I said, Brooklyn has a lot of question marks because they did the same trade several years back when they had Darren Williams at the point guard. They had Brook Lopez. So they had established players and a nucleus. Like they had a future. They had a future with Darren Williams and Brook Lopez, and they had Joe Johnson. They had pretty much that was pretty much it at that time. I want to say, but they made a trade with Boston, and they traded a lot of draft picks, maybe the same amount that they made with the Rockets. So when they inherit the players, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry, they're all on the back end of their career, and that team severely underachieved. Paul Pierce, like I said, and Kevin Garnett were all on the back end of their careers, and they didn't produce as those picks turned out to be great picks. Um, Jason Tatum, I think Brown was one of the picks too. So you got 2 great superstars. Not saying that the Rockets are going to get superstars out the draft. Raphael Stone is really going to have to do his work and figure out, okay, this is how I'm going to approach the draft. I'm going to use these picks, or I'm going to trade. He has to figure out how he's going to use these picks. He needs to get a superstar. So does he trade? Does he draft? That's something Raphael Stone has to, figure out. Not me, not y'all. Raphael Stone. He has the golden ticket. He just has to cash it in whenever he has to. But like Boston has a lot of question marks. They had Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving hasn't even been playing with the team. He's been checked out for the last few weeks. So that's why I think Boston wanted to make a trade so eagerly. I know Philadelphia wanted to wait it out, but there was no way you could keep James Harden in this building because what he said, ridiculing his players like that, his teammates, um, that's a low blow. Um, yes, they might not be the players that he's used to, but he didn't even really give them a a legitimate chance. Um, the effort when I watched them against the Lakers, I was kind of man. I was very deflated. I had no hope for this team, and when he came out and said those words, it wasn't shocking to me because I felt like it would have been more shocking to me if he would have said that in the beginning of the season because it would have been like, hey, why are you saying this? You never gave it a chance. He did give it a chance, but the effort level, he was standing around most of the time. I mean, he looked better on the bench because the team will look more fluent and they're actually trying to play and abide by Coach Silas. So saying that, I mean, he has a lot of work to put in. He has to get in shape. He has to. That team has no defensive stopper. So he's going to have to play defense. Somebody's going to have to play defense on that team. If it's Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant, like I said, DeAndre Jordan, he's a shell of himself. He looks like a plant stuck in the ground. I'm not trying to, be an asshole, but DeAndre Jordan is far from DeAndre Jordan from the Clipper years, even the Maverick years. So he's not the same player. They lost Allen to the Cavs. I really wanted him. I really wanted him. I know he was on a 1 year deal, so that would have been another player you would have to re-sign. But I guess, I'd rather have a first round draft pick than Allen. So it makes sense right there. But Karis LeVert, I really wanted him because, you could trade him as well. He's a young piece. You could have traded him for, Michael Porter Jr. as well. So I was kind of like a little upset that we traded him so, fast. But, the Rockets right now on paper, they're still a playoff team. You have John Wall, Victor Oladipo at the shooting guard, and Eric Gordon. So I really don't know how that's going to work out with Victor and Eric Gordon. Does one of them get traded? I really don't know as for right now. That's the thing. You're going to have to let this play out this year in 5 years, 6 years from now, because these picks are going to determine if the Rockets won this trade. Now, if Brooklyn wins a NBA title this year, then Brooklyn won. I mean, it's clear that they won because when Brooklyn made the trade with Boston, 5, 6 years ago, um, you know, Brooklyn lost because Brooklyn was horrible. They're hot garbage, and Darren Williams fell off the face of the earth. Joe Johnson was the only good player on that team. So this will be a little different for Brooklyn. James Harden is still a superstar. He may not be, this year he has taken a dip. He looks fat. He looks like fat bastard for real. But Kevin Durant's coming off a horrible injury, but he looks great. So this ain't like a KG and Paul Pierce, Jason Terry situation. It's a little similar in the modern era because Kyrie Irving doesn't even want to be a part of the team. Kevin Durant, you know you don't know what you're going to get with Kevin Durant. Even though he's playing at a high level, like I said, he did come off a horrible injury with an Achilles heel. And then James Harden is still fat boy. So they still have a chance. Look, there are a lot of teams in the East. The East is it's the tougher conference. For the first time in 21 years, the East is the more dominant conference. That hasn't been said since Michael Jordan. Um, you know, but Brooklyn still, I don't see them as a defensive stopping team. They're gonna have to outscore every opponent they play. It'll be fun to watch. I don't necessarily think I'm gonna be hating on Brooklyn. I would like to see James Harden win a title, but I wouldn't be shocked if they don't. Now, if James Harden gets knocked out, well, I'm not necessarily going to say if James Harden gets knocked out. If the Brooklyn Nets get eliminated, I'm going to sit here and say, wow, it matters how they get knocked out, but I would have to look at how James Harden really plays because it's going to determine if he really is that key player, or did the Rockets really just give him the keys and allow him to drive into a tree. This will determine. This year is really going to determine that. So we'll see. We'll have to stay tuned. But Kyrie Irving is the real Achilles to that whole team. So we'll see. But as I really care about the Rockets. Um, Rockets still have a lot of issues. Now they really don't have a young superstar, but like I said, they have a lot of draft picks. So that's going to have to play out, like I said, in the next several years. But as of this year, they still have John Wall, who's a great leader, who looks like he's an all-star level again. I hope he does become an all-star because the Rockets deserve to have at least one all-star representing the team every year. That's a no-brainer. This is a great city. It's one of the largest cities in America, and it does justice if they could be represented. You know, John Wall or Christian Wood, either or, even if Victor Oladipo gets himself back together. We have three candidates to be all stars. Like I said, if Victor Oladipo lasts to the trade deadline, but I wish him well. I hope he does become very significant for this team. Do I see Eric Gordon get traded? Man, it's hard with that contract. I mean, I really don't know what the Rockets are going to do now. I really don't know. That's the thing. And you need a center. That's why I kind of wanted Allen, but Jared Allen. I really wanted Jared Allen to play that center position with Christian Wood at the power forward position. But I mean, we didn't get him. So, I mean, I guess, oh well. I mean, DeMarcus Cousins is eventually going to have to start because Christian Wood is getting bullied down in the bottom of in the paint. He's not holding his ground. And that's the reason why we did get bullied around by the Lakers and even other teams. So, I'm not going to blame James Harden for wanting to leave. I just don't like how he carried it out. Last night, he shouldn't have said that. He shouldn't have showed up to practice because he didn't show up to practice today. Obviously, he got traded. So I think he should have just sat out and quit on the team already. It's better than saying what you said. I mean, you don't want to make enemies in the NBA. I mean, I think Houston is the city that will always look back at James Harden and say they will hate him. I think a lot of people in Houston already hated James Harden because of some of the playoffs performances. But I'm not gonna say that was necessarily all on him. I mean, there was times that he did quit. I mean, what we saw against the Lakers, he did quit. Um, maybe you could say you could have saw that in the playoffs years ago versus the Spurs, or against the Warriors last 2 years ago, or maybe even last year. I mean, that's a possibility that he could have quit on the team. Uh, it's unfortunate, he represents the team and himself, so that's very key. I mean, I'm gonna have to look at it and say, nah, like he didn't quit. But I do know he quit this year, and it was very hard to watch him showing up overweight. And I could live with him showing up overweight, but it's the fact that he quit. It doesn't sit right in my mouth. I don't like my lasting memory of him quitting on the team. So I do think that he'll get booed, but eventually it'll be like a Vince Carter, situation where Toronto embraced him again. I don't think it'll carry on like the situation with Vince Carter. I think the Rockets fans will forgive him more faster than the Toronto fans did to Vince Carter. But like I said, I do see that similarity between the Vince Carter and the Toronto Raptors situation with the Rockets and James Harden. You know, um, like I said, Rockets fans have a lot of reasons to be mad. You know, I understand that James Harden's the player, but they always back James Harden. You know, this city was always loyal to James Harden, and across the nation, the narrative has been James Harden is a choker. He doesn't show up in big games. He lets the game. He kind of manipulates the game with how he you know dribbles, uh, his step backs, getting fouled, getting to the free throw line. But like I said, excuse me, my dog was chewing his bone. But like I said, um, you know, he has that reputation for quitting. Um, oh, excuse me, I got to stop my dog. I'm sorry about that. He was chewing his bone so loud, so I had to grab it from him. But like I said, look, I'm not gonna hold James Harden really accountable. It's the city, the other people who are not real diehard Rockets fans, really. They just know, hey, James Harden left the team. He ended his relationship with the team horribly. And I understand that. There are a lot of casual fans who just know James Harden. They don't know John Wall. They don't know DeMarcus Cousins. They don't even know if we got a new coach. They just know James Harden left. So there's always going to be a bad narrative towards James Harden, especially when there's players like Hakeem Olajuwon, Jeff Bagwell, Craig Biggio. The list goes on. Warren Moon, Errol Campbell. So I don't think James Harden will finish atop of that list like that, even though he should be. He definitely was a top performer on the team. He'll go down as the second best Rocket all time. But, at what cost? At what cost? His name has been slammed into the mud, rubbed through the mud. So as of right now, I could just say this. Look, I wish him the best of luck. Like I said, when I started this video, I did thank him, and I thank him for the memories. You know, uh, you know, him hitting that clutch 3-point shot against the Warriors. Joe Green running up to him and PJ Tucker celebrating. He said, "Hey, stop! We still got 1 second, few seconds." I remember that. I'll never forget that. Those are memories you can't take away. That's him hitting that the game winner on Denver. I think it was in overtime. Just so many memories. Breaking down, Ricky Rubio. All those memories. Those are memories that I'll never forget. Trading away Kevin Martin for James Harden. I remember that clear as day. I would never forget that. I remember where I was. I was at work and I was just like, wow, I was the same age as James Harden at that time. So I kind of grew with James Harden. We're the same age. So, I mean, I grew up with him. So, I watched players before him. I watched Tracy McGrady, Yao Ming, Steve Francis, etc. But like I said, when James Harden came to this team, I felt like I was kind of invested just because we were the same age and I was doing things and he was doing things and I was just watching him, at the same age, always changing. Like, it's just crazy, like it's just crazy. I'll never, I would thank him for those memories, So even though they weren't, having the best ending, but like I said, I'm gonna end it here. What are y'all thoughts about, the trade? Do you think we took who won the trade in your opinion? Also, remember like, subscribe, and I'll probably make another video in the morning. Thank you.